What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Treehouse Brewing Company YouTube channel, where today we are tasting 4 iconic white ales.
Okay.
Right into it we go. So what is white ale? Well, in the white ale ideal, there's 2 different types of beer. There's obviously a wit beer, and there is a white ale. What is the difference? Well, not much. A wit beer is a white ale, and a white ale is not necessarily a wit beer. A wit beer or a white ale is a beer that's brewed with wheat. It's fermented with a yeast that creates certain phenolics that are peppery or spicy or fruity or citrusy and flavor profiles like that. And generally you add coriander and orange peel to flavor the particular beer along with classic style noble hops. And there's a little bit more freedom around what you can put into a white ale and still maintain that name. But the most important thing is that both styles of beer are primarily wheat-based beers that are fermented with a characterful yeast that add coriander and orange peel. People will use ginger, they'll use lemon peel, they'll use other flavorings, but for a wit beer, specifically for a wit beer brewed in Belgium, coriander, orange peel, flavorful yeast, they're generally hazy. They're generally very yellow in appearance. I do know the 4 beers that I'm drinking. I don't know what order they are in. I may try to guess them if I'm feeling up to it, but I'm definitely going to rank them in terms of my favorites 1 through 4. So today we are drinking Shock Top, we are drinking Blue Moon, we are drinking Allagash White, and we are drinking UFO by Massachusetts' own Harpoon Brewing Company. Let's dive right into sample number 1. Obviously, samples 1, 3, and 4 are reasonably similar in orange-based appearance. I think this is probably the haziest of the bunch. If you are enjoying a wit beer or a white ale, one important thing to do that when you pour the beer into your glass is a lot of times the yeast will settle. And a big part of the wit beer / white ale experience is having a nice, frothy, creamy, kind of opaque appearance. And if you have a beer that's been sitting in the fridge for a while, you want to pour about half of it into the glass, kind of swirl the bottom of the remaining beer in the bottle or can, and pour the remainder into the glass so you get that yeast sediment, which in this particular style of beer is not only desirable, but it's acceptable as well. Sample number 1. I mean, right out of the gate, big orange flavor, getting a good amount of that citrusy phenolic and spicy peppery yeast note. Big citrus character in this example of white ale style. I will say, of the beers in the panel, I know Blue Moon reasonably well, and I'm surprised by how dark all these beers are. I know Allagash White reasonably well, but for white ales in this panel, I am shocked that only 1 out of the 4 looks like this one, because this is what you normally expect. It's what I normally expect from a wit beer or white ale style of beer. So sample number 1, frothy, creamy, nice texture, nice mouthfeel, big citrus notes on the palate, a little bit of oxidative notes. There's a little bit of I'll use the term rotten orange. It tastes a little bit stale to me, not super bright and not super fresh. But again, if I'm handed this in a can or in a bottle at the barbecue in the summer, I'm not going to turn it down. Sample number 2. Beautiful yellow color. Look at that. It's great. Not super opaque. A little bit of translucency there. I can kind of see my finger through the glass. This one's nice. This one's a lot more yeast driven in the aromatics and flavor profile. Very phenolic. It's got that kind of banana-y, spicy, peppery, citrusy note. Big on the nose. Belgian yeast esters. A little bit of citrus, a little bit of coriander. Not overwhelming. Oh yeah, nice, creamy on the mouthfeel, texture, smooth, flavor follows suit. I even get a little bit of lemon, biscuity malt, doughy bread. Really nice example of the style, sample number 2. Moving into sample number 3, which I have to say appearances-wise is probably the least appetizing of the bunch. These were recently poured into the glass. This one exhibits the smallest amount of retaining foam. Let's see if the flavor and texture can change my mind. Wow, getting nothing on the nose. That's strange. like maybe a hint of orange. Tiny bit of citrus in there, very little of that phenolic yeast expression that we got here in samples number 2 and even a little bit in sample number 1. Sample number 3, very, very muted all around, not my favorite. Moving on to sample number 4. This one looks good. It's a hair lighter than sample number 1. Good haze and a little bit of translucency. Looks reasonably fresh. Nice foam skim here on top of the glass. Interesting. That's good. It's sharp. It's got kind of a punchiness to it. Not as meaty as this first sample. Flavor profile is a lot more concentrated. But again, not a lot of yeast-driven notes. A little bit of citrus. Not a lot of bright coriander. I'm going to go dive back in one more time before giving you guys my final impressions of these white ales. Sample number 1. Bright citrus, like really pungent citrus. Orangey. Big mouthfeel. Creamy. Sample number 2, classic yeast-driven flavor and aroma. Beautiful. What I like about this one, very flavorful, very big on the mouthfeel, but then it tails off into this dry, easy finish that just makes you want to go back for more. Sample number 3. Tough appearance. Not a huge fan. One more time for sample number 4. Okay. All right, so I think I've formed my impressions on these beers. This is a tough panel. There's certainly a couple of beers that stand out above the others. I'm surprised by how kind of orange and citrus forward these examples of the style are. I'm having a little trouble with samples 1 and 4 in terms of which one I like more than the other. Sample 4 is a little bit less potent than sample 1, but it strikes me as a lot more drinkable. As a purely flavor-based exercise, I'm having a hard time between samples 1 and 4 because number 1 strikes me as rich and flavorful, but boy, is it sweet and big and cloying. Whereas sample number 4 may not be as flavorful, but it strikes me as easier drinking. So with all that said, I'm going to pick my favorites. Here we go. So the winner of the 2024 American White Ales Treehouse Sampling Blind goes to sample number 2. This was not a hard one. In fact, this was very obviously the favorite as soon as I went through the front of the panel. Yeast-driven, wonderful, fresh, bright, perfect balance, big, full mouthfeel, wonderful beer to sample. So again, I'm going to go with my gut on this one. Based on flavor alone, my second favorite, I think, was sample number 1, but based on what I would want to drink, which ultimately tells me what beer is better, I would choose sample number 4. Could almost be a tie between samples 1 and 4 for my second favorite, but that said, we have to pick. So sample number 1 gets my number 3, and sample number 3 is my number 4. Should I guess?
Yeah, why don't you try and guess?
I know that I know one.
Which one is that?
1,000% sure that sample number 2 is Allagash White. Clear winner, exceptional example of the style. That's the only one that I'm 100% certain of. In terms of the rest of them, if I had to guess, I would guess that sample number 4 was the UFO, sample number 3 was the Shock Top, and sample number 1 is the Blue Moon.
So Blue Moon's correct. You got Shock Top and UFO swapped.
Okay, so this is UFO? Okay. Judging blindly, it can be hard to say. I don't know the age of these beers. I don't know the condition of these beers. So I always like to, assume the best for each packaged product that we do sample in the panel. Just in this particular panel, I had thought that this beer fell short. Good show to the Shock Top. Nice, round flavor, easy to drink. What was the video that we did where we had the Blue Moon and I was offended by how sweet it was? Oh, I know what it was. It was the 36 worst beers. I said that I disliked Blue Moon because it was too sweet. 35, Blue Moon. Boy, I don't like Blue Moon. I don't like Blue Moon. It's just overly sweet to me. Now, again, I can understand why people enjoy that flavor profile. It's big and sweet and kind of juicy, but boy, is it hard to drink a lot of. And I'm surprised by how orange it is. My impression and recollection of Blue Moon is that it's a pretty yellow beer. So I'm surprised to see it be so orange. But all that said, the flavor was great. The drinkability was very low. So I feel good about where I chose today's beers. Time-honored style, probably one of the easiest drinking beers on the market. You know, it's summertime. If you find yourself a warm summer day, head to the white ale aisle and pick out one that you might find to be your next favorite. I want to thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this, leave your thoughts down below, get subscribed, and we'll see you next time. Take care.